Blessings and greetings. Greetings and blessings, and souls. We're live because we're meaning to stay alive in this most existential of moments, intended being configured toward Chaim, in talks of life, toward Chesed, in talks of kindness, toward Rachman, in talks of mercies. The other day, I was relaxing and watching. Actually, the truth is not, I wasn't relaxing. I was riding my bicycle to work. I'm in a category of someone who is considered an essential worker, being in the mental health field. And I was listening with great curiosity to an individual who I'm not even going to say his name. He's known internationally for some good reason. He brings out some interesting points, but he started making assertions how that the world is blinded and we're truly spiritual, we're not truly physical, and therefore, things are going wrong because we're truly spiritual. Okay, sounds like a very nice assertion. But someone mentioned in this interview with this person, why doesn't a person who is promoting this idea, which I'm not against totally, toward spiritual, makes no mention of a creator? Higher being, spirituality, higher consciousness, an awakening of the masses or a stupefaction of the masses. Okay, these are matters that can be talked about. In fact, in the laws of the foundations of the Torah, Rambam, the laws of prophets, mentions that a prophet who gets a communication from the Creator and their various levels of prophecy is separated from the masses of people. So we see in social consciousness, human consciousness, spiritual consciousness, cognitive consciousness, there are people who are blessed to rise to the top of looking out at the field of human awareness, and they can see a wider field than most other people. And sometimes these people are called prophets, visionaries, mystics, seers, wise men or wise women, wise human beings. Fine. And at the same time, too, this person was talking about that it should be a better world, which I definitely agree, especially during this horrific pandemic, regardless of which side of the coin, as discussions seem to be getting more polemic, spreading out where there was originally there was, if we look at a bell curve, the original mass of human awareness was, in fact, this was a horrible outbreak. And now there's a polarization for people saying this is not real, it's not a true entity unto itself, but rather it's being masked under other diagnoses and being COVID-19. I don't know. I do know that I've lost a friend. I have an uncle who's fighting for his life. Hopefully will be coming off the ventilator very soon. I happen to be a former neighbor of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Groner. Olav Shalom, may rest in peace. Many good, decent people have been lost. So I don't know which way. To me, it's not even important to me to take a stand on it. And of course, this whole discussion of whether people can return to normal life, I am bursting at the seams that I want to return to, normal life, normalized life, and the rest of my family and friends and greater community. We all, who wouldn't want to return? Now, of course, when we return to regular life, will things remain the same? In the status quo of there will still be matters to be contended with, justice system, economic system, the healthcare system, the educational system. So all these things mashed together, this individual who I'm hinting to was talking about there's a plan or a conspiracy, or some sort of matter transpiring before our eyes that most people are not aware of. And I have no problem with that. 200 years ago, approximately, before this enlightened person was born in our generation, there was another enlightened individual by the name of the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, Rosh Zaman Liadi, who talked about that the wicked people of the world rule the world. Now, this is wicked. We're not talking about necessarily just outright, overtly evil people putting a knife to other people's necks, robbing them, doing all acts of cruelty. This is in the category of very wicked and evil stuff. It's something I've mentioned on more than one occasion. I once heard this from Rabbi Yitzhak Ginsburg. There are basically three general categories of human beings with various gradations within these three general categories. It's category number one, the tzaddikim, the righteous souls of the creation, who are visionaries and have some foretaste of the future world, blessed and anointed, and they're never disappointed because they get such a wonderful portion from their divine image. They're able to go out and scrimmage and educate the rest of the human experience, whether their messages are accepted or rejected, people are apathetic. So they are. And they exist within all different cultures. We have our share as members of the Jewish people, our great prophets, mystics, wise men, wise women, masters of good deeds. And then you have the middle category, the bell curve, the intermediates known as the Benini, who basically are willing to receive the instruction of the righteous, the tzaddikim, and try to live very existentially in the now, to penetrate the moment, like right now, to do something good and to try to avert engaging in any evil thought, speech, or action. Third category, and again, there are many gradations within the level of Benini. The Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, said there's at least 500 gradations, the chinot, qualities of the Benini, the intermediate human being who immerses him or herself into the nowness of the moments of their lives. Then we have the Rishonim, the wicked. Again, these are not just the typical bad guys or bad girls or bad women, whatever you want to call them, bad human beings, but they are stuck in a very chaotic frame of consciousness where they don't think things can change. Things must, whatever environmental situation they've been born into, whatever political system they've been born into, whatever cultural setting they've been born into, whatever faith-based or quote-unquote religious context they were born in with, there's nothing else aside from that. And therefore, those in Yiddish, they'll kind of try to schlep back the Beinin, the intermediate level of human consciousness, or the tzaddikim, the most righteous form of human consciousness, and try to sometimes overtly and covertly schlep them back into a consciousness which undermines their very efforts. The tzaddikim they can't defeat. But the middle level, the Beinoni, they can have very deleterious effects on them and cause them to doubt the teachings of those who are the seers of the future. Some would say they are coming from the future to educate us to get out of this existential now and to improve and upgrade it to that future that they have been bequeathed with, whatever factors that were poured into the composition of their righteous souls. And this is what the wicked try to do. So while we see all of this madness transpiring, that this person is more spiritual than physical, I'd like to just bring out some matters that agree and not necessarily disagree, but to bring out a salient point based on the fact we have to be rooted in one true source. Agree or disagree. It's either you can drink this cup of tea or reject it, but it's something to consider. I'd like you to consider this. So it's like five different levels of created beings or entities or things that have manifested in creation that we interact with, if not on a daily basis, from time to time. So number one, we have the sun. Now the sun has been used as an allegorical means within the Torah teachings as to understand our Creator as an illuminator, constantly shining out a brightness and a warmth and a strength, and also that we should be wary of avoiding getting close to this source unless we're prepared to look at this source directly. For instance, one should never look directly into a sun on a bright sunny day, it can actually damage the eyes. On sunglasses, or there's certain telescope devices, and I'm sure in the world of science and biology and physics, what quantum physics, whatever it may be, that people are getting a very good look at the sun now because there are filters to block that potent, that powerful shining out of that wondrous light that spreads out simultaneously into all of creation, all different directions. We don't even, maybe some scientists know, I don't know, if I've never learned about it, as much Mr. Scientist, that the sun is how the sun benefits other planets and other systems with its light, that bright ball of fire. And yet to take note that this bright ball of fire that we're looking at, and we have to be careful when we look on a sunny day, it has a sheath that is covering. So we're not even looking at the sun, yet most people, until they learn about it, think they're looking at the sun, that great big ball, but it's actually a sheath which is covering the sun. So to speak, the sun itself, the creator and the creator's ultimate wisdom created a entity which has its own natural filter or sunglass to protect us from getting damaged by that light, to look directly into it. Perhaps if that sheath wasn't there, the earth would be burnt or damaged severely, much to the point where it would be a dysfunctional planet. Heaven forbid. So this relates to the Sphira, the divine conduit of Kesser, of crown. So we advocate that the crown of all creation is in fact the creator who stands above us, but whose influence penetrates the earth, strikes all different types of matter upon the earth. We feel the sun's rays, we feel its warmth, we have solar voltaic cells, all different types of technology which benefit from it. We see plant life, animal life, human life, and even inanimate matter benefiting from the bright light of the sun. Warmth. Warmth is usually connected with enthusiasm. Then we have the blessed created entity of rain, which according to Torah, oral Torah tradition, is likened to wisdom, chachma, which flows or pours down from heaven and combined with Kesser, the crown of creation, the sun, allegorically speaking, with rain, it's going to facilitate delight, because when the rain comes in the proper time, people are caught in the rainstorm, it facilitates growth when that water strikes the earth. Even there are certain categories of fish, having observed that even though they are totally submerged in their source, river, ocean, lake, there are certain types of fish that will come to the surface to catch the drops of rain. So too, we human beings are thoroughly immersed in wisdoms, not necessarily that we've acquired, but surrounding and swirling around us and pouring upon us. And yet there is a certain types of self-abnegation, certain type of bittul that we want to reach up to get another drop. Not that just the drops that we're used to, that we're surrounded by, but seeking a type of wisdom that comes from above our normal perspective and reception to receive wisdom. And that relates to the spheritic configuration of Kesser. Chochmah. Then we have fire, Ish. What is the nature of Ish? Is that if you light a candle and the wick is burning and the fire continues, the fire burns from the point that it is grasped onto the wick of the candle and the flame goes up. It's not controlled. I guess you could say, again, I'm not a scientist, I'm saying gravitational forces hold it to the wick, but still, if you move the candle from back and forth, even for a moment you turn it upside down, the flame still wants to go up. Up to what? Its source. In the wisdom that is fed into the kernels of understanding, and again, there's a warmth. There's an inflamement, there's an enthusiasm within fire that we can learn from. When we are fired up by new inspirations, when we're fired up by new insights that either we've gained through our own study, our own prayer, our acts of kindness, because your understanding can definitely be exponentially activated by doing something very kind or thinking very kind thoughts about other people. Then we have another entity which we may interact with on quite a frequent basis, depending on where you are. But most of us can experience this at one. If we were to stay up a whole 24-hour day, most likely we would encounter this entity known as wind, ruach, which relate to emotions. And winds can go one way, they can go the other way, they can go forward, they can seem to be backward, depending on the direction that we're walking. And it also can be a source of encouragement. When I first started learning Torah, about 35 years ago, a great teacher of the nation of Israel, so his teachings can be exemplary for the entire world, Nachmanides, Ramban, talked about if you want to see a proof of Creator, when you feel the wind, that's what Creator is. So within our emotional capacities, if we can stay at a level where we're trying to progress with our emotional plasticity, we can move emotionally in all different directions, no matter what the situation is. But hopefully our emotions have been rooted in some sort of prefatory cognitive experience or awareness. And then sometimes too, we can be surprised by an emotion that really lifts us because we heard suddenly someone sing a song. We saw a touching moment where a grandchild holds with all of his or her strength the hand of their elderly grandparent, was wobbling and walking with a cane, or maybe, I mean, it shouldn't be these things, but these things are in the creation still, in a wheelchair, whatever. The child is just so infatuated, just holding on to grandma and grandpa's hand, or uncle so-and-so, or auntie's so-and-so hand, and watch the tender love exuding out of the child, and the emotions generated by all different types of experiences in the 60, 70, or 80, or 90-year-old grandparent or great grandparent, whatever it may be, great uncle, great aunt, and you're watching something. It's two physical beings just merely holding a hand, one hand in another hand. Is that truly spiritual? Is it truly physical? It's a fusion of both. And that's why I am very much against the idea that we're truly physical, spiritual beings. Anyone thinks that there's physical, they're missing the whole point. Yeah, they are missing the point. But anyone thinks we're truly spiritual is also missing the point. And to say that the spirit is more important than the physical, actual denial. First verse in the Torah, in the beginning, the Creator created the heaven and the earth. The earth that we're about to talk about one moment is relating to, oh, by the way, and the wind into the spheriotic configuration is basically kindness, might, beauty, victory or perseverance, splendor, foundation. And now we come to the earth, which is likened allegorically to Malchus, sovereignty, meaning nothing can stand on this planet if we don't have this inert certain amount of space, certain amount of volume, certain amount of pounds per square inch of matter that we can stand upon, that can serve as a resistance to the ebb and flow of all the bodies of water, the water tables in the world. And yet, in and of itself, really, the earth, configured to the Syriac configuration of Malchus, kingship or sovereignty, basically stands in its place. It can be eroded by the wind, it can be eroded by water. Again, sometimes we're like earth, we're stuck in our place, and the water comes and washes a little bit away of our earthliness, our crudeness, our crassness, our, like an area which has been sun-baked and is just parched. When the water hits us, we become catalysts for growth. The earth itself becomes a catalyst for growth. The various developments in human agricultural efforts in a way that has a positive symbiotic relationship with the earth has shown that that which was once a desert can become a orchard of luscious fruits and vegetables and grains and for raising livestock. So again, earth as molecule sovereignty, inert, yet can serve as the basis of so many different types of life. The inanimate itself, because from there is the storage place of all the precious minerals. Where are we going with this? Not necessarily in any direction. I'm just throwing out ideas to try to show that there must be a fusion between the physical and the spiritual, and we can find a virtue in the physical that we don't find in the spiritual, and to find a virtue in the spiritual that we'll never find in the physical. And yet, we are blessed, blessed souls, to try to understand that there is one who's a mafila asos, who can actually bear all the contradictions between pristine spirituality and pristine physicality to educate us. Now, we will say it's through the Torah. You might have another system. Fine. We're talking about basically observations of the same phenomena, just different eyeballs, a different mindset, a different heart set, a different set of emotions. So a person comes out saying, well, we're living in an illusion and the true reality is the non-physical. I beg to differ. Because precisely in the concealment of the physicality and subduing the physicality to a higher realm of consciousness, which again, with all the technology that they can put, wires on the forehead or the skull, or they can, cases unfortunately where skulls had to be opened to do brain surgery. And certain parts of the brain were tapped, and all of a sudden a person felt hungry, they felt cold, or whatever responses they had. If you were to measure thoughts, and I guess they, just like there's a heartbeat, I'm sure perhaps by now in technology they have a thought beat, and everyone's talking about whether they're praising it, they're scared of it, they're wary of it, or they're not concerned really what it is about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence can be used for many good things, but if it's used for manipulative reasons, again, in connection to what I mentioned before about what the Alter Rebbe said, that the wicked rule the world, meaning it's not necessarily the larger percentage of the human field of consciousness, but in small numbers, many have shown in their wickedness, inability to change outside their own context, they've dragged the tzaddikim and the beinanim into tremendous levels of suffering. So now we're seeing tremendous levels of suffering globally. And whether you want to call it conspiracy, New World Order, okay, whatever it may be, yes, no, whatever you want to feel, it's still, there's a sizable percentage of people who don't want to see the change towards the actualization of all human potential across the four corners of the globe, on each and every continent. And it's impossible to point the finger at this group or that person, though there are certain people who must bear accountability when they do wicked, evil things. But going back to spiritual, going back to the ethereal, when you get a new idea, yes, it's an extremely spiritual, because it's spiritual. Ruach is an insight into the design of how a human being is supposed to calibrate divine energy as it's channeled through the cognitive processing of right brain, left brain, and back brain thinking. And therefore, it then becomes a matter of, can a person bring that processing from the mind and bring it down to the heart to expand the emotional content in the right and left chamber, epicenter of the heart. Be done. The tzaddikim is done. They've worked on it, they refined themselves, they got a type of pristine education on a spiritual and physical and metaphysical level. Again, amongst the Jewish people in the Torah, and for those who are able to, and not to see as a contradiction to secular studies. So the new idea that comes to your mind. But in your physical mind, there is a changing of the chemicals, reactions in your brain when you get a new idea. And your speech becomes different because you become inspired by the new idea. But it's your speech, by sharing it with another human being. When you talk, you can feel a wind exuding out. Now there's a wind or a spirit coming in. The breath of life is constantly coming in through our right and left nostrils. Oxygen. I don't even know how to connect it to the, some would say oxygen or air is connected to das, connection to the essence of it. Because if we don't connect to the essence of that which is giving us life, the air we breathe, we're going to die. So, and there are different levels of getting this breath of life. Ask the fish how they get it. You take them out of the water, they're not going to live too much longer. If you stick us in the middle of the ocean, and we have to swim 100 miles back to shore, make a prayer for that person. We should make a prayer for ourselves. We say the Shema Yisrael. So air is das. I guess that again, because talking these things out, new ideas come out. And again, most of us are hanging out. I'm an essential worker. I do have a certain privilege. Nothing to be proud of. It just happens to be by Shkach Prot, divine providence. I'm involved in this type of endeavor. We have to realize ourselves there's no contradiction between spiritual and physical and spiritual. And if we say the words too spiritual, it's an illusion, reality. Well, if I can't walk through that wall, yeah, the illusion is I can't walk through the wall, but the physical reality is if I try to walk through that wall, I'll be stopped in my tracks. And if I try to run through the wall, probably going to break some bones, God forbid. And when I hear people saying, well, the COVID is not really a virus, it's not real, it's being masked under other maladies and infirmities, breakdown of people's immune system. That may well be true. How many people have died already? Physical entities with a divine image have died and are now buried in the ground and are not getting the respects, whether it be according to Jewish tradition that we have. And I was involved in one preparation of one person who passed away in 1997, and the sheer awe that one feels and sense of finality and mortality when one prepares a body to be buried in the ground. I'm sure there are other traditions of the faith that accord the body the same amount of respect, whatever level their culture dictates. It's a life that breathed and laughed and cried, helped others, and perhaps did some things that were not so great, whatever. No one's perfect. Hopefully they made amends for it before they lived out their allegorical 120 years. So again, I watch these videos of nurses and doctors crying from giving 150% of their 100% effort to try to save other people's lives, and how they feel so impotent when they watch people breathing on ventilators and are not even able to help and just feel helpless. That's spiritual, but it's a helplessness based on a physical observation of a physical reality manifesting before their own eyes. So in the middle of all this pandemic, talking about, we're blinded to the fact that we're more spirituality than more physicality. The Torah says, don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. On the physical plane. And if you can stay away from those matters, you will be imbued with a new spirit. A new spirit that you are turned off and disgusted by anything that would violate the sanctity of the creation, the sanctity of a human being, reverence toward the Creator. Davar mu'as, it's a disgusting thing to you. So rather than trying to push people's buttons spiritually and saying, well, we're more spiritual than physical. Once heard a story from a teacher, Yosef Markel. He's very sharp sense of humor. Lives out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He guest over talking about all is one, and I think it was a Shabbos meal, and Rabbi Markel put him and his wife, his Rebbetzin, they put out the food for the table. When it came to this person, put on his plate like a plate or a plastic telephone. So the person was watching. He had a telephone on his plate. So what is this? How come I don't get food? So Rabbi Markel said, all or everything is one. Everything is one, and everything, and we have the creator is everything. Everything is the creator, but we have to make distinctions, and we have to have We have to prioritize. Especially during a time of pandemic, instead of accusing and this way and that way, because again, the old modes of human custom behavior of hatred, jealousy, competition are always ready. From the Yetzer Hara, you can even say from the Satan, the Satan, is all the more happy to report to the heavenly court that we are not making changes in our lives to improve ourselves and to help others improve. So again, I don't know if I went in a direction, but I'm just throwing these matters out on a plate for you to consider. And there's actually much more to talk about. But I think after 31 plus minutes, those enough who will be willing to make the time trek to what I've just talked about, which is basically a lot of impromptu sharings. I just like to leave off with one more thing. Addressing to this person who I'll probably never meet in my life, and again, he sold millions of books and he's heard by millions of people. And if I get 10 people to watch, I'm okay with it. I was told to do this by people way beyond my field of awareness. Rav Hillel Meparich was a tzaddik. He was a mystic. He was a Mekubal. Well versed in the Kabbalah, he knew the Talmud, he knew the scripture, he knew the Mishnah, he knew the Jewish law. And he once said, it's important to be right. It's more important to be good. And if you're trying to do good, and it can be frustrating at times to try to always do good, eventually I do believe, this is not Rav Hillel, this is myself talking now, if your endeavors in life are to do good, you should start to see, Bez Hashem, the help of the Most High, you should start to see there's no contradiction between the spiritual and the physical. Sometimes there must be an emphasis on the design and the protocol of higher realms of consciousness, but also it has to be brought down to basic, mundane, baby step actions, thoughts, and speeches to share with others and to share with ourselves. Let's try to think about that. And while we're concluding now, I want to remind everyone, before I tell any of you to be good, I've got to be good, you've got to be good, we've all got to be good. The nature of the good is do good, and the Creator's source of our goodness is waiting for us to make that transition from being polemic in terms of what's going on in the world today, get into that middle stage to try to be a little more existential in the moment, with the intent of being guided by the teachings of the tzaddikim, of the righteous. And hopefully we can schlep the rishonim, the wicked ones, those who are just stuck in the mindset and would like to bring us back some draconian type of mentality that we can't go further in the development at this stage, in this generation, this time period of the human family experience. And we should be successful in schlepping out the rishonim, the wicked ones, in a manner of a havachad, one love, girl, one destiny, all of us, in a pleasant, peaceful way. And with that being said, we're in the month of Iyar, which is Rosh Chodesh Iyar, which is coming up on Shabbat of Tazria and Metzora, which are fascinating Torah portions about the individual who has leprosy, not the leprosy that we commonly associate with modern definitions of it, but the Torah versions of presentations, I should say, instructions on if a person becomes leprous or his or her clothes become leprous, or even a house they've moved into has shown signs of leprosy. So, with that being said, wish everyone a great day. And let's move into the now to realize we're already now configured to the future, and the future is waiting to shine out to us. Total, absolute, universal redemption for the entire human family experience. 7.7 billion human beings gleaming and streaming into the creation. And the good news is, at that time when we're truly configured to that universal redemption, we can flush down the toilet bowl of mistaken human consciousness, all notions of hatred, jealousy, and unneeded competition. Take care, everyone.